I'm Louisa Barton with the Horse Talk Show, and I'm at one of my very favourite places in the world. No, it's not England, but sometimes you feel like you might be there when you visit the Gypsy Gold Farm tour here in the horse capital of the world, Ocala, Marion County, Florida. And I'm here with one of my friends, Dennis Thompson, and I'm going to chat to him a little bit about how all this came to be. Dennis, tell us a story about a trip to England.
Well, let me go back just a touch. It's important to know I was married 3 months out of high school to a girl I started dating at 15. 4 little girls by the time I'm 24. 17 years pass when fate hands me the responsibility of raising those 4 little girls alone for the next 7 years. They were 11 to 16 years old, and I raised them on ranches in South Texas. And one of my daughters was 19, and she worked at a pet products distributor through my connections, Lone Star Pet Supply. And she called me one day and she said, "Dad, we just hired this new woman. She's beautiful. She has 40 parrots and a Porsche. She's perfect for you." So I met 40 parrots and a Porsche 30 days later at a pet convention in Dallas. And 2 years later, we were married. And we were late to our wedding because we had to stop and look at donkeys, you know. So
I can relate.
yeah, so these two people who shared the same passion came together with nobody to say no, and within 5 years we had approximately 700 animals. So giraffe, camels, zebras, giant tortoises, wallabies. We had a zoo. Yeah. Yeah. We lived where Pat Pirelli lives now, and but it was set up for exotic animals then. Matter of fact, it was a national television program about our relationship with animals on the Outdoor Life Network. But we traveled all over the world setting distribution in the animal products industry, and we would spend any personal time doing research on animals. And in 1995, we're outside of London on our way to Pets at Home. Being an English girl, not everybody knows that, but chain of stores in England, you know. And we passed a Shire Center.
I love the Shire.
And you would even know that, but I can't think of the name of the town. But anyway, outside of London, and it's the type of thing we like to do. So we stopped to find out what the hours were, and they said they're closed for the season, but if you'll come back and have dinner with us in our pub, we'll give you a private tour. So of course, dinner's at the pub, and we get our private tour by a man named Phil Ball. And Phil's the manager of the center, worked with big horses for 30 years, drove the Courage Brewery hitch, equivalent of Budweiser in England. And he owned a couple of Shires at the center, and he had a 2-year-old filly he was proud of. But he'd sell us that horse for 1,500 pounds, 1.70 exchange rate at the time, 2,500 US dollars. She looked like 701 to us. We could be a little impulsive. But we had never imported a horse, didn't know enough about Shires. And Phil told us that even though it's known as the English Shire, he said it's the farmers in northern Wales that have a generational passion for these big horses. So off we go to northern Wales for the weekend, and we spend a lot of time in old stone barns, and the breath of the giant horses in the cold air and the accents of the Welsh farmers and wine and cheese at night. I tell people it was terrible. Yeah, yeah. So we're on our way through Wales, discussing the cons of owning the largest horse in the world. We crossed the border from Wales back into England near Oswestry. We're in the countryside, and we go through a roundabout, and Cindy said, "Do you see that little black and white horse?" And I said, "No, do you want me to go back?" And she said no, and then quickly changed her mind. She said, "Yeah, let's do." So we turned around and went back and parked on the side of the road, and the little horse saw us, and he came running as hard as he could to say hello to us, and we both fell in love with him. He looked like a little Shire, didn't have any of the negative features we were just discussing, and he was black and white to boot. We thought, we'll buy him. We could be a little impulsive. He was unusual looking. I'd never seen a horse quite like that. I assumed he was a crossbred horse. Didn't care about that. We liked unique things. We can justify doing something stupid as long as nobody else has one. So we'll buy him. So we drive up the driveway and introduce ourselves to the farmer, and I take that picture on the wall back there. The farmer's dog is looking at me, and Cindy's asking the farmer questions, and he explains it's not his horse. He's only keeping it for a few days, and it belongs to a traveler. And about 10 minutes on the conversation, he said, and he has a band of mares that looks just like him that he keeps hidden. I said, they can't look just like this horse. He said, I assure you they do. And of course, Cindy and I have extensive knowledge on animal breeds. And I don't know a breed that looks like that. And you don't have a lot of something that looks the same unless somebody intends that to happen. And why does he hide them? So we asked if we could meet this man, and the farmer got in touch with him by cell phone. The gentleman came over, and his name was Roy Evans, as in Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. Roy Evans. And we spoke for a few minutes to Roy, and he invited us to his caravan. Took a few steps towards his vehicle, looked back, and said, don't worry, it's respectable.
You probably weren't worried.
No, I hadn't heard that in Amish country. So we got in our car and kind of laughed about it and said, some things are worth dying for. We'll follow this guy, you know. So we followed Roy to a caravan site, which is a gypsy camp. We didn't know then, but later we found out in 1968 there was an act called the Caravan Act, and it was an effort to settle these nomadic, colorful people. And frankly, Great Britain did what we did to the American Indian. They created reservations. So there's 100 of them throughout Great Britain. They're called Caravan Sites in England. They're called halt sites in Ireland. You can halt here and you can halt at the next one. Just don't halt in between. So it's a way of controlling a colorful culture. And we didn't know it, but the general public doesn't go in caravan sites. And the police don't go in caravan sites unless they're in pursuit. So we could go anywhere because we didn't know that. So it's called ignorance is bliss. But it was a chain-linked, locked area, and Roy unlocked it. And we spent the day with Roy and his wife, and they couldn't have been any nicer. They made us tea and gave us cookies, and Roy took us out and showed his babies his stallion produced. He bragged on his horse all day. And he told us he had mares that were 40 miles from there that his brother didn't know where they were. And he didn't explain why, and I didn't ask. And towards the end of the day, he said he's a one-off. He said, look all you want. He said, you won't find any better. And if you do, he said, he's going to cost you a lot of money. He said, I'll tell you a place where you'll see hundreds of colored horses, but none as good as mine. He said, you go there, and then you call me after you go there. You tell me if you found one as good as mine. He said, don't forget to call me. So through Roy's invitation, Cindy and I became the first Americans to ever attend the oldest gypsy horse fair in the world, over 330 years old, called Appleby. 10,000 gypsies gather on a hill called Fair Hill to reacquaint with family and friends and trading horses. And we were there for 10 days, obsessed with identifying every gypsy that bought or sold a quality-looking horse. We introduced ourselves, documented contact information, which would be cell phones, and thereafter began a journey to understand gypsies and their horses that lasted the next 4 years. We traced Roy's horse, his name was the Log, through 3 countries. We found his mother and father in Wales, his grandparents in Ireland, all raised by gypsies, focused on producing a horse to look like the Log, born from a vision that was not known anywhere in the world outside the world of gypsies. We stood overlooking the Irish Sea with the Log's DNA-verified father and the gypsy that raised him, and he pointed to a clearing under a tree and said he was born right over there. He said, I'll never forget the day he was born. I held him in my arms, and I knew he was special. He said he's the best colt I ever raised. And he took us in his caravan that day and gave us a book on Appleby Horse Fair and showed us a picture of the Log being ponied through the River Eden in Appleby. That, in 1992, I think it was, he was the highest priced colt in all of Great Britain at that same 300-year-old horse fair.
What an incredible adventure. Amazing. We have to break, but I'm going to be back with Dennis Thompson at Gypsy Gold Farm and give you the rest of this incredible story. I'm Louisa Barton for the Horse Talk Show.